Moving on to what I think is super important for those that want to understand the data as much as we do, Reece, is our research. So this is giving users the same research access to we get to make decisions based on what markets we're investing in Australia. So here we are looking at a market such as Perth. You can categorise that market based on supply and demand indicators, lending or credit, affordability. We talk about the affordability. All this data here is on our PropStac portal, and it tells you where we see as a default whether it's positive or negative for investors. And there's never going to be a perfect market. That's why you don't see every data set lighting up green in terms of positive, because there is some negatives. But if I was to click through here, you can see population growth for Perth. As you can see here, it's far above its long-term growth projection. So typically a balanced market for population growth for Perth sits at about 1.5%. Now currently at 3.2%, it's showing it's very strong and a very positive data set for an investor. So even for non-sophisticated investors, you can still get some really good use out of these data trends. Those that are more sophisticated, you're going to love the DIY charts, because this is really where I spend all my time, comparing markets within markets, right? So if I pull it up here, this is where I start to overlay and start to compare, add various series. So here we're looking at, say, a Melbourne market median house price. We might look at that and compare that to a market like Brisbane to see what they've done over the short term, long term and medium. We'll bring that back to 25 years. You can start to see out, okay, what are the correlations happening between different markets? And that's across all the same data sets: affordability index, population growth, lending data, vacancy rates. So this really starts to gamify, and for people that love data like me, Reece, which may not be everyone, they can start to play with this.
This has always been our favourite feature. We've been using PropStac internally for the last 12 months. We've obviously been decking it out so there was a consumable version, especially for our audience to play with. But from a data perspective, though, we're talking about this data on our monthly updates. We're talking about this data on our podcasts. And we just felt, it was probably the best time now is to start to let the end consumer access that data. But it can look confusing, right? You did say here, this next level isn't for everyone, right? You got to understand how it works. So the first page that you did show there was a great summary. It shows you if it's positive or negative. There will be tutorials that we'll have coming out as well for those that do want to get into the weeds and really understand it where we explain it. But I think that, from our perspective, we're only going to include more data as PropStac progresses.
Yeah, like I said, for our beta version, we want to keep it as user-friendly as possible. We don't want to overcomplicate it. So we're not going to unlock all the features straight off the bat. So there's probably 60% access for users to start with. And like I said, once you start to get through it and understand it, you'll start to unlock various features. And for those that love the runway data in terms of where interest rates are at, this is, again, you can start to track this based on where you personally believe interest rates to land. This is our runway data at interest rates at 6.24 at the moment, 6.24. You can start to see where we see the runway in both houses and units across the market. So market trends, runway data, and do-it-yourself charts. Like I said, our listeners, I think, will have a field day with this, because you can really start to form some opinions and views based on this data.